All right, so yesterday we talked about a heavy fever presence in Team USA because Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Stephanie White, all involved in the training camp. Now there's a heavy fever presence in Project B. Project B, the new basketball league, generated a lot of headlines, notably because of money. But in the last couple of days, Kelsey Mitchell has signed on, and now Sophie Cunningham has signed on. And of course, Kelsey Mitchell, her ability and her increased notoriety in the last couple of years make that a pretty big deal. And Sophie Cunningham, her star power, for lack of a better phrase.
She said it, and you could feel the whole room just stop. Her words were a direct shot at the idea that you have to be loyal to just one league forever. I mean, Sophie Cunningham, just so casually, basically asked why any athlete would ever turn down millions of dollars. This wasn't just about some new league popping up. This was a huge shift. It started a conversation that echoed all through the WNBA. It even had players like Kelsey Mitchell trying to figure out what this all meant. This bold new stance that put money first. Honestly, women's basketball was never the same after that moment.
Offering multi-million-dollar deals. Where do you stand on Project B? Is that a league you'd want to play for? She says, I don't know too much about it, You see stuff on social media, but I also know how social media goes. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But, if people are going to be paying you multi-million-dollar deals, why would you not? So a little foreshadowing there. Why would you not? Well, the question as to why would you not is the perceived links to Saudi Arabia with Project B, which has become a point of contention because it originally, it's funny because it was originally put out there, Saudi-backed league, and then the pushback came heavy from Project B. Obviously, they didn't want their brand.
So where does all this come from? Well, it starts with a problem that's been bubbling up in the WNBA for a long time. This feeling that the league just can't pay its top stars what they're truly worth. For years, you've heard players talk about the low salary. It's what forces so many of them to go play overseas in the off-season just to make good money. That situation, that basic economic fact, created the perfect opportunity for other leagues to swoop in. They could promise life-changing money, and that's exactly what set the stage for Project B to make its big, controversial entrance.
Perceived links to Saudi Arabia with Project B, which has become a point of contention because it originally, it's funny because it was originally put out there, Saudi-backed league, and then the pushback came heavy from Project B. Obviously, they didn't want their brand sullied by that connection. I wasn't over here moralizing. I know people like to play the hypocrisy game, activist league, and now signing up with Saudi Arabia, and that could have opened up a whole can of worms. But it has been interesting to see how quickly all that has been attempted to be squashed by Project B, who say they don't have any.
And then Project B just exploded onto the scene. It was making huge headlines everywhere, mostly because of the insane amounts of money they were supposedly offering. You have to understand, this new league wasn't just another place to play in the off-season. It was trying to be a complete game changer. They were promising multi-million-dollar contracts, numbers that made WNBA salaries look tiny, and were even bigger than a lot of top overseas deals. Of course, that got the attention of the best players in the world almost immediately.
Any Saudi-backed funding, though they are partnered with a company called Sela, which is owned by the Public Investment Fund in Saudi Arabia. We'll get to that in a second, what they said. But the pattern that I referenced is, it seems to me, a lot of the players signing up for Project B are players who have been around a while and now have a chance to get paid. I mean, we've already seen Sophie Cunningham discuss wanting, a longer contract, that she could buy a house and all these other things. Well, that makes sense and is in line with signing with Project B.
Right. So it didn't take long for some really big names to start signing up, and Kelsey Mitchell, she was one of the very first major stars to say yes. Think about it. Her profile has been rising so much lately, and her skill is just undeniable. For this new league, getting her was a huge win. Kelsey's decision was a signal to everyone else that Project B was for real. They were serious about getting top-tier talent, and that move made them seem a whole lot more legitimate in a lot of people's eyes.
When it was new and first position and it was Saudi-backed and all that stuff, the whole tone of it was, is this a threat to the WNBA? especially in the midst of the back and forth CBA negotiation. And then another question emerges: is it a threat to Unrivaled because it happens in the offseason? And it seems to me that Unrivaled is still getting a lot of the NIL kind of players, the next wave of players, the young players who maybe aren't as experienced going overseas or haven't lived that WNBA life yet. To me, that seems to be holding true with Unrivaled so far.
And then came Sophie Cunningham, which just added even more star power to the whole thing. Sophie's got this magnetic personality, and her game on the court is fierce. Grabbing her was another massive get for Project B. The second she signed, the league was right back in the spotlight. It showed a clear pattern was forming. They were going after established players who were looking for something more, something bigger than what the traditional leagues were offering them.
It lines up, especially with the money that they're paying. That's a big deal. It's a big difference. Where does that money come from? That gets back to the question I was talking about before, and which keeps getting brought up. Sarah Spain had Alana Beard on, who is the chief basketball officer for Project B.
Company owned by the Saudi-owned public investment fund, PIF. Lots of talk about Saudi involvement and initial reporting about Project.
But here's the thing. Sophie's move wasn't a total shock. If you were paying attention, people who follow the sport closely remembered what she said to Front Office Sports a while back. They asked her about Project B's multi-million-dollar offers, and she just said it straight up. If people are going to pay you millions and millions of dollars, why wouldn't you take it? Looking back, that comment feels like she was basically telling us exactly what she was going to do long before it happened.
And on social media. But again, Burnett told Front Office Sports that Project B wants a global diversified cap table, but quote, that doesn't include any dollars from Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
So what's the...
That one simple question she asked. Why would you not? It turned into the center of a huge storm. The biggest reason players might actually say no had everything to do with Project B's supposed ties to Saudi Arabia. When the news first broke, everyone was calling it a Saudi-backed league. That immediately brought up all these ethical questions and became a major sticking point for players and fans. Suddenly, what looked like a simple decision about money got a whole lot more complicated.
Something that's maybe either incorrectly reported or not fully fleshed out in reporting so far.
Yeah, I love that you asked that question because I think people are going to focus on what they focus on because it's very hard for people to process something as ambitious as what we're building. And the fact that we have to sort of engage or partner with certain entities to get it done. At the beginning of this call, I named Jeff Prentice, I named Grady Burnett. I don't think you need anyone else to drive sort of access to capital other than these two individuals, right? And so to Grady's point, we are a global basketball league, and it is our job.
And if Caitlin Clark were to sign up to Project B, that would be a big story. As of right now, they're getting some big names. They're getting some good players, but it remains to be seen where Project B winds up. And as of right now, they're still just another offseason league that pays a lot more and now has some Indiana Fever flavor.
So Project B got hit with a ton of pushback right away because of these Saudi connections. At first, that Saudi-backed label was everywhere, but the league worked fast to shut that narrative down. They clearly didn't want their brand to be linked with that. It led to a big PR push to change how people saw them and to create distance from any idea of direct Saudi funding. Even though all the early reports said one thing, Project B has always denied getting any money directly from Saudi Arabia. Their official line is that they are not financed by them. This is a huge part of their strategy, trying to move the conversation away from the money source and focus on the basketball. But their denials run into a pretty complicated reality. The thing is, Project B has a major partnership with a company called Sila, and Sila is owned directly by the Public Investment Fund, or PF, of Saudi Arabia. So that direct link, no matter how they try to spin it, keeps those questions about their funding alive. The league's chief basketball officer, Grady Burnett, tried to explain it. He said they just pay Sila as a service provider to handle event logistics and production. He insisted Project B is aiming for a global, diverse group of investors that doesn't include any Saudi money. They argue Sela is just a vendor, not an investor. Now, if you look at who they're signing, you see a clear strategy. The league mostly goes after athletes who've been in the game for a while, players with established careers who are probably looking for one last huge contract. They're targeting more experienced players who want a big financial opportunity that other leagues might not give them at this point in their careers. Sophie Cunningham is the perfect example. She's openly talked about her money goals, about wanting a long contract so she can buy a house and set up her future. Project B's huge offer speaks directly to those goals, which makes her move make a lot of sense. And Kelsey Mitchell fits right in. She's played overseas for years, she was just in China last year, and even got hurt. For her, Project B isn't some brand new idea, it's just another high-paying off-season job. But on a much bigger stage, it lines up with what she's done before to maximize her earning. So the big question is Project B a threat to the WNBA or a league like Unrivaled? Right now, it doesn't seem like it. It operates in the WNBA's offseason, and the contracts don't seem to stop players from playing in the Unrivaled seems to be going for younger, NIL-focused players, so they're in different markets. For now, Project B is just like any other international league where players go to make extra money. And this isn't new. Remember when Diana Taurasi skipped a whole WNBA season because she got a way bigger contract somewhere else? She set the standard that players will go where the money is. At the end of the day, the money is what's driving all of this. These multi-million-dollar offers are a world away from what these players have ever made. That appeal is so strong, it can overshadow a lot of other issues. But even with all of Project B's denials, the story about it being a Saudi-backed league just won't go away. The league feels like it's reported incorrectly, but that connection to Sela and the PF keeps that controversy right at the center of the conversation. Ultimately, the moves by Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham show this complicated mix of money ambition, new leagues, and global politics. Their choices are changing the game, forcing players to weigh these incredible opportunities against all the controversy that comes with them. What happens next is going to be one of the most interesting stories in sports.